And now we have electronic music royalty in the studio. Hello there, how are you today?
I'm very good, nice to be here.
It is an absolute pleasure, and if you hadn't guessed it already, it's Mr. Neil Tennant from the Pet Shop Boys, one half of the legendary duo, which have inspired so many people over the years, including myself, and it's a great honour for me to have you around.
Thanks for having me.
On this, it's our more wonderful series called Inspirations, and we're going to talk about a few records that have had an influence on your life. And which one do you want to go with first?
Well, it was quite difficult choosing three records that kind of inspired me and us into the direction of electronic music. But this is one from the early 80s, I think 1982, by Grandmaster Flash, called The Message. And when this record came out, I was working for a magazine called Smash Hits, which is a very big pop music magazine at the time. And I suddenly, when I joined that, I started to get lots of free records, and that was a great thing because you could hear lots of obscure things you wouldn't hear normally. And I was quite into early hip hop at that time, like Africa Bambaataa, Planet Patrol, and this record by Grandmaster Flash, which actually amazingly became a top 10 hit in Britain. And I was really interested by the fact that the rap was all about social issues, because when rap started, it wasn't, if you think of, for the Sugar Hill Gang, it was sort of about rapping. And whereas this came along and it was sort of about living in the South Bronx. And also the music in the background was super electronic for the time and quite innovative and different. And I thought it was a brilliant record.
It is a brilliant record.
And then the rhythm of it, the actual rhythm of the rap, inspired. I decided to write a rap without any music, and that rap became West End Girls. So if you hear Grandmaster Flash on this, and you know West End Girls, the rhythm of the rap of West End Girls is pretty much the same. And the difference I made was I did it in an English accent. And it was quite difficult then to do it in an English accent because one's instinct was to rap, as people still do, in an American accent.
Let's have a listen.
It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under. It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
And back from the fantastic classic Grandmaster Flash. I'm not sure whether Furious 5 were involved in this one, but at least it's The Message.
I think they are officially.
Yeah. Officially.
Yeah.
I know there's a long story there afterwards. Yeah. Let's save that to another time, nonetheless. Yeah. So tell me about it. You went to New York in a fairly early age and experienced a lot of stuff over there that I'm so envious about. Please tell me, what was it like back then?
Well, it was amazing. The first time I went to, it was because of Smash Hits. The first time I went to New York was to interview Kool and the Gang for Smash Hits, and that was in the summer of 1982. And this was an amazing time because this is when hip-hop had just started, when breakdancing was all over New York, and it was a very thrilling time. Then the following year I went back because we launched an American version of Smash Hits called Star Hits, and so I was there for three months or so, and I actually paid quite a few visits. Me and there was a woman designing the magazine with me from Britain, and we used to go out every single night to the Pyramid on Avenue A or to Area. There was a gay club, a black gay club called Better Days, where Shep Pettibone used to DJ. And there was Danceteria, where they played kind of indie, New Order kind of music. And it was a very exciting time because dance music was changed from disco to all sorts of different styles, to sort of rap and hip hop. House music was coming, wasn't there, but in retrospect you could feel it coming
slowly.
And then the whole breakdancing thing, it was such a brilliant culture. And if you went to a club like Area, it wasn't just a club; it was like an art installation. And you would turn around at the bar and you would see Andy Warhol standing behind you. But it was very, very inspiring. And at the same time, Chris and I had come to New York in the summer of '83 to record with the producer of the next record we'll play, which is Passion by the Flirts. And this is a record Chris heard in a club in London and asked, as he still does, by the way, asked the DJ, he's one of those DJ botherers, and he asked the DJ what it was. And he bought this record, and we both loved it, because it was this raw electronic, almost punky electronic sound. And being at Smash Hits, I would look at all the obscure records that got thrown in the bin, and I discovered there's a load of records by this guy, and he was called Bobby Orlando. And I went to New York to interview the Police when Every Breath You Take was #1. And I thought, while I'm there, I'm going to meet Bobby Orlando, and I phoned up his PR, and she gave me the phone number, and he invited me out for lunch. And then, and I told him Chris and I were writing songs together, as we were at that point. And he said, "Hey, let's make a record." And it was like a film, the whole thing, really. And then 2 months later, we were back in New York, and we made West End Girls. And Bobby O was an extraordinary character because he made so many records. He was trying to release more 12-inch records than Columbia Records, which CBS were issuing, and he just churned them out with incredibly varying degrees of quality control. But also he was a brilliant melodic writer, and also the whole thing was really inspiring and fascinating. He was a big inspiration for us in the early days.
It's funny you should say that, but that's pretty much what's going on in electronic music right now, isn't it? Sort of there's no quality control. It seems there's loads of music coming out that doesn't really.
Well, it's because in these days, this was the beginning of that, because we used to complain to Bobby Oakes when we first worked with him. We went in his studio, and Arthur Baker was in the room next door. You know? But really, Bobby O was ahead of his time because he was sort of inventing the making records in your bedroom thing, because the technology was changing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this was the record "Passion by the Flirts" that really inspired us.
Let's have a listen to it. And we're back, still with the man, Neil Tennant from Pet Shop Boys, the one half, if you will.
Yes.
All right, let's do the last record of the one of the three inspirations you've chosen.
Well, if you're in electronic music, you have to be inspired by Kraftwerk.
Obviously.
Because they didn't totally start it, because maybe Giorgio Moroder did, but it's sort of a battle between Giorgio Moroder and Kraftwerk. And I remember in 1977, at the height of punk, you know, when we all used to sit around in flats in Kilburn listening to Nevermind the Bollocks, we also sat around listening to the album Man Machine by Kraftwerk. And this was the sort of commercial breakthrough of Kraftwerk. It had all of the hit, the model comes from, which actually became a number one hit, but it became a number one hit a few years later. It was a brilliant sort of electronic sound, this, that we hadn't really heard before. It was so sleek and such a strong idea of modern, and so German in that sort of way we think Germans precisely, no, they're not really, as I now know, spending a lot of time in Berlin. And this album is just perfect. And if you listen to it now, it's still just perfect.
You know what? I played in Ibiza last week. I played for the Radio 1 at High, and I actually finished my set with the model, and it sounds amazing on a big sound system.
So much bottom end, good, probably. Yeah. And also, you know, this, with modern technology, where you can have any number of tracks, when you go back in time to Bobby O, and also to Kraftwerk, who are a lot more sophisticated probably, there's less going on, and there's so much space, and this, you know, it's about the sounds are so strong. Each sound is worked on. It's so strong. It's why it never dates. It's a classic. It's like Mozart or something almost.
I agree.
And also they're amazing melodicists. They all have these simple tunes like The Model, but it's original. No one else had thought of it before. No. And also the writing words in English thing in a German accent is really great. And then, of course, if you were cool, you had to have the German version of this album.
Yes, of course.
and you can now get them both on the same CD set, I think. And anyway, the track I always liked the most wasn't The Model. It was this instrumental called Space Lab. And also you could tell that David Bowie was listening to them hugely.
Yes, most definitely. I agree with you completely. I think it's an amazing album, and I still listen to it pretty much all the time. Let's listen to Space Lab by Kraftwerk. And we're back, concluding a wonderful chat with you. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks. It's been fun.
I think it's incredible to hear all these stories. How inspiring it must have. I mean, do you have a memoir I can read?
No, I don't. I keep getting asked to write one, but I can't be bothered. I keep saying I'm too young.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Someday.
Well, thank you very much for coming in. So tell me, what's coming up for you guys?
Well, we've been doing this tour, the Super Tour, named after our last album, Super, we started rather grandly at the Royal Opera House in London last year. Actually, the music before we come on is a track by you from your last album.
Well, thank you so much.
And the track, I can't remember what it's called, it's been to C.
Cassiopeia.
There you go.
The piano one.
And fair enough, I listened to it. I was listening to a new album yesterday, and also my iTunes flicked onto that. And it's funny, it makes me feel nervous listening to it, because I'm like, oh my God, we're going on stage now. And I have this ridiculous helmet I have to put on while your track's playing.
Oh, really?
So it makes me think of putting a helmet on. We've just been touring in Europe. We did America last year, and then we've got some more dates. We're headlining Festival, actually.
That's fantastic.
We're playing 2 dates in the Sage in Gateshead, stroke Newcastle, in September. We're playing in Dublin for 2 nights, and then we go to South America. So it's all happening.
That's a lot of touring.
It is, yeah, it is.
Well, I'll let you get on with it.
Thank you.
Back to the tour.
Yes. Adios.
Adios. And thanks very much for coming in.
Pleasure.